Hey y'all, I'm Rylan. Welcome to my channel. I had a very fun time a couple of weeks ago doing some rapid book reviews when I came back to my channel after a long hiatus. So I wanted to take a moment to do that again because I have read a bunch of books recently and I want to talk about them, but this is like a thriller exclusive edition because I've been reading a ton of thrillers recently, or it's a ton of thrillers to me because I'm just kind of still getting back into reading. But I have 5 thrillers here that I want to do a quick rapid reviews for. Some of them I really enjoyed, other ones I unfortunately did not, but I wanted to go ahead and give y'all a quick rundown of some of the books that I've been reading recently. I have 5 books here and we're gonna go through them in order of least favorite to favorite, so we'll build up to my 5-star read that I had a couple weeks ago and one of my favorite books of this year. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and dive into these 5 thrillers. I don't own any of them. A lot of them were NetGalley ARCs. One was a library book, and then one I did own, but I've since unhauled. The way that this is going to work is I'm going to give a 1-sentence or like 1-phrase synopsis about each book, and I'll give 3 qualifying aspects of said book. So the first book that I have on my list is The Dare by Natasha Preston. I gave this book 2 stars. So this is a book about high school seniors who do a dare for one of their senior pranks, and it goes horribly wrong and they end up with a dead body. I have read several of Natasha Preston's books, have loved several of them, have not so loved some of them. Unfortunately, this is one of those ones that I just didn't end up loving in the end, but it's a very fast-paced book. Best friends in this book very much turn on each other. There's a lot of betrayal and secrets and lies between a group of what you would think of as best friends, so that was exciting. And finally, there were a lot of plot twists that I felt came out of nowhere with like character development, that all of a sudden like these characters completely flipped their personalities, and that felt very unrealistic to me and kind of confusing. So 2 stars to The Dare by Natasha Preston. I'll have content warnings for this book and all the other books on this list in the description down below as well. Second book that I have is The Burning Girls by CJ Tudor. I gave this book 3 stars. I had it on my NetGalley shelf for several years. I am very glad that I finally read it. This is about a female reverend who moves to a small town parish, and they are being haunted from both the past and the present. A lot of weird things happen in this town, and our Reverend Jack is involved in a lot of what goes down, as well as her daughter. There's a lot of backstory with this book, a lot of like past hauntings where these martyrs in town were burned, and then a couple years later, or several years later, probably decades later actually, 2 girls disappeared, and all these things are happening, trying to tie the past to the present and figure out the truth behind a lot of what happened in this town, or a lot of what happens in this town as well. There are a lot of unexpected plot twists, which I really enjoyed, and multiple POVs, which I really liked in this book because you kind of get POVs from the past and the present and unknown people who play a role in the story, and I do always like a good rotating point of view, so that was fun. I did just end up getting confused at the end, so that was really where my enjoyment dwindled because I was confused by the time I reached the end of the book. The next book that I have is Can't Look Away by Carola Lavering. Is this really a thriller? I would consider it more of a drama piece. It didn't really feel like a thriller to me, but I think it's tagged as that. But it was fun. I gave it 3 stars. I've read another book by this author, Tell Me Lies, which is a Hulu TV show. I really like Tell Me Lies. Actually, I gave that book 4 stars and ended up crying at the end of it. This one, I can see kind of like the author writing in the same vein of drama and like first loves and toxic loves and things like that, but this one just didn't hit as hard for me, I guess. But this is about Molly, who relives the past with an old flame when he comes back into her life when her new best friend in this town that she lives in apparently has married him, and she finds out like months after knowing this woman that she married her first love, or her biggest love. So there's a lot of drama revolving around that, and there's a really cool element to this book in the fact that one of our perspectives that we get is written from the second person perspective, you, as though the narrator of that chapter is talking to us as you, as though we are Molly because she's talking to Molly in those chapters. So I really enjoyed that. I love reading books that experiment with that kind of second person perspective, and this one I thought did a very good job of doing so. Very much gave stalker vibes because of it, which is one of the notes that I have here. And I always love finding books that have that, because for a long time the only book that I'd read that had that perspective was You by Caroline Kepnes, and it's super creepy, so I wanted more. So I'm super glad that this book had that. I really enjoyed that element of it. Just very creepy, very unsettling, very eerie, and very much gave stalker vibes, as this woman was keeping tabs on Molly for years of her life. So that part was very interesting to me. And then you also have rotating POVs and timelines. So you're exploring the past between Molly and her first love, and the present with Molly and her new best friend and her husband, and like the small town that they're in, and like this present reality that they're in, where we've thought we've all moved on from the past, but maybe it's closer than we think it is. So I did like that as well. But I think the thing that I didn't love was that, like, it was good, but my attention just, I was never like super like, oh my gosh, what's gonna happen, because I don't think that this is really a thriller. I think it was classified as one, but I kind of just found it to be more of a dramatic contemporary piece of literature. So I liked it, but I was never like, oh my gosh, how's it gonna end? I was invested enough, but not completely, if that makes sense. The last two books that I have are books that I've given 4 and 5 stars. I haven't given very many of those out since I've started reading again, so it's always fun to have a couple of really great books thrown into the mix here. But the next book that I have is the Book of Cold Cases by Simone St. James. I gave this book 4 stars. This is the 3rd book I think that I've read by this author, and very, very, very fun. This is about a true crime blogger who does this blog on her own time, but it's grown pretty popular. She gets the opportunity to interview this infamous female serial killer who was accused of killing multiple people in the past, but I think was acquitted, and everyone still thinks that she did it, and she hasn't come out and like really tried to defend her case in the end. She's kind of been a recluse and lived in this huge house, and there's a lot more to the story than people realize, and super interesting. Really enjoyed this one. You have a lot of traumatic pasts being explored in here with both our blogger, our main character, as well as the serial killer, the quote-unquote serial killer. So lots of like explorations of the past and childhoods and trauma that was experienced. And then there's also the supernatural element to this book, which I don't always love. I feel as though supernatural elements in thrillers can be a hit or a miss for me, and here is definitely a hit though, thankfully. This book and the house on the lake or whatever by Riley Sager, those are the 2 books that I've read over the last couple of years with supernatural elements in them that I feel actually did a great job exploring the supernatural elements without it being too much or too out there for me personally. So really liked that part of this book as well. And I also really liked the exploration of female serial killers, because I feel like a lot of books that I've read recently, or just like a lot of thrillers in general, focus on male serial killers, which is great. I mean, I'm doing my thesis on a male serial killer, so that's exciting. But this book, and then the only other one that comes to mind that I've read that has like a female serial killer is They Never Learn by Lane Fargo, I want to say. Really enjoyed that book as well, but I kind of like this exploration of female serial killers in this book. So overall, great time. I need to read more from Simone. I think the author has 2 or 3 other books out that I do need to check out soon. So great time with this one. This was also a NetGalley arc, so very excited to have gotten that off my shelf. And so was Can't Look Away. So that's 3 NetGalley arcs in this list, which is great. My ratio is up to like 71% now, which is the highest it's ever been. So love that for me. And the last book that I have on this list was a 5-star read for me, and one of my only 5-star reads so far of 2024, and that is A Talent for Murder by Peter Swanson. This is a thriller about a wife who thinks her husband might be a serial killer when he comes home from one of his work conferences and she finds some blood on his shirt. So she asks a friend who has been kind of involved in solving detective cases for help. I love this book. It took so many turns I was not expecting, but made complete sense, and it was amazing. We also follow the serial killer's perspective in this book, which I think is super interesting. This was one of the first books that I've read that I can remember following the serial killer's perspective, and so I really wanted to read more after reading this book. So I've been trying to find books that follow kind of like that killer's perspective, but that was super interesting. Really enjoyed that aspect of the book, but we also get multiple other POVs as well that kind of tie the whole story together. Again, I love finding different voices in the books that I read by following multiple perspectives, so I do always enjoy that aspect of my books. So really enjoyed that. There are so many plot twists, I've already said that just had me gasping. I did not want to put this book down. Every time I put it down, I wanted to pick it right back up, and I've read it pretty quickly, all things considered, and I could not believe that it was over. I think I could have kept on reading that story for a very long time. It's not a very long book. I want to say that it's barely 300 pages, but I did not want to put it down. It had me gasping so much. It was such a thrill ride. I didn't know what to expect by the ending, and also, apparently it's the third book in a series. Didn't know that, but I might have to go back and read the first two. You don't really have to read the first two books in this series to be able to read the third one, A Talent for Murder, but I'll be curious to see the connections, because there is one character in this book that you get perspectives from, I'm assuming, in the other two books as kind of that detective figure trying to solve this mystery that's going on in this book. So 5 stars to Talent for Murder. This is the first book that I've read by Peter Swanson, but I definitely want to read more now because I still think about this book all the time and I want to read more like it. So if you have any recommendations for books like that, feel free to comment down below and let me know, because I'm always looking for new book recs, and I've been on such a thriller kick recently that I need more, especially in relation to serial killers, because I'm on a kick of that right now as well. So that's all that I have for today's rapid book reviews video. I might do more of these in the future. I like the idea of being super organized, not going off on rabbit trails, and just bam going through the books that I read and giving y'all some very general information, but enough details that might make you interested in picking up the books that I talk about. So those are all the book reviews that I have right now. I'll probably do this again in a couple of months, but if you have read any awesome books recently, feel free to comment down below and let me know your thoughts on them. I'd love to hear what great books you guys have been picking up as well. That's all that I have for y'all for today. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next one.